If it's a direct question, I'll respond to it. Okay. All right. So let me set the agenda. Quick introduction about myself. Hi, everyone. I'm Lalit. Uh, I recently started in a new role. I'm working as director for Center of Research for AI and Data Sciences at UPS. Before that, I was, or rather, I'm still a co-founder of Edvancer. Edvancer is a decade-old company. We are into delivering AI ML capability building courses to individuals from multiple different domains. It's not limited to people coming from, let's say, just engineering or science-oriented domains. We've been doing this for a decade. And the courses that we deliver are tailored for people coming from various different backgrounds. We train them on different tools which are required. So, and we have evolved over time. So, for example, when we started, we were teaching proprietary tools like SAS. The term data science wasn't as popular as it is today. Uh, there was nobody dreaming about that ChatGPT will come someday or will do things that it does today. And over time, we have evolved ourselves as the industry has evolved. Currently, we offer tools which are in line with the industry offerings, and the courses that we deliver, we also deliver to our corporate clients. So our courses prepare you to hit the road running instead of some organizations getting trained all over again there. And I think you will receive much more formal introduction to Advancer as an organizations and the courses that we deliver. I will not bore you with more details here. If you have any questions, do let me know. Now, what is today's agenda about? Is that I wanted to talk about, or rather show you how to go about building a chatbot in today's world with the offerings that we have. And I did not want to repeat the usual chatbot discussion around using a framework like Rasa, which trains its own models internally and so on. Now, chatbot or rather chatbot building a conversational agent has become very, very accessible to people from across domains and verticals that they come from. All that you need is little familiarity with Python. You don't even have to be Python expert per se. So I'm using Python as a tool today. And many of you, if you're not familiar with Python, just focus on the logic of it. So the idea, which goes behind building into a conversational agent. And, whenever you acquire additional skill set ready to use the knowledge that you gather today. Okay. Just in summary, today's agenda is going to be is my whiteboard visible to you? I have just ran test on it. Everybody can see that? Yes or no? Responsible with the Q&A panel. Yes, thank you, Prakash. Okay, so summarizing what we are going to talk about during today's session, I don't want this to be a session where comes the entire chatbot development in 1.5 hours, and you end up taking away almost nothing from the session. So I don't want to do that. What I want to start with is to showcase kind of content that you can generate with a large language model. My tool to go to will be, again, as I said, that I want to make it as accessible. So I'll be using GPT to showcase creating different kind of content. It can be email, blogs, ad copy, tweets, and then further using some kind of basic prompt engineering to shape up the content that we're rating to our use case and so on. I'll be using GPT-4 to showcase that we can create images. I don't think that's available by default. So GPT-4 is something I have to subscribe if you want to play around with what we see here today. But largely, as simple text generation is concerned, the capability of 3.5, which is available for free, that I'll be using in the session. So you can play along with me or pause the session if you want to do some experiments. Now, post that, I will talk about that. What, how do we take this functionality, this ability of GPT, this other large language model, uh, to build something that to our user base, because well, GPT has its own interface, right? And when we are building our own applications, we would want to have our own, and then we would still want to communicate with the open AI language model. So we'll see, the API access to an LLM. The example case would be OpenAI, but that could be other placeholder large language model like GPT. So we'll first talk about why do we want to do this, and then again, I did not want this session to be where I focus on creating a prototype using some type of Flask or Streamlit, and you get bogged down into details of how the Python thing works. So what I'll assume is that we are working on the back, and I'll showcase some basic machinery which might go into an app. If you choose to convert into a prototype using Flask, people who are aware of that. If you're not, that's okay. So I'll elaborate there. In case you want to take this and build an application, what pieces you'll use from our disk. Now, we'll start with a generic QA bot. Then, which is a single query job. So we'll start at a single query bot. Can we, within the API access, can we set the tone? Can we tell our bot to respond to us in a certain way? Okay. So we'll look at setting the tone. One is, of course, there is a default way in which, OpenAI GPT responds. Then you can make it respond in a certain way, which your user wouldn't know. It's something which will be in your own control, and we'll experiment, we'll do some fun things there. Then move to a conversational bot. So a single query bot doesn't have anything to build on. It doesn't maintain a history of the conversation by default. Conversational want to maintain history of the conversation, and we'll see how using a simple SQL DB, how do we maintain the history of the conversation. And of course, I'll be discussing how to scale it up to n number of users, and what could be the challenges when we scale it up further for concurrent requests and so on. The last thing that I want to talk about is so we'll see the one of the challenges in conversational QA. If we keep on growing, maintaining of the conversation beyond a certain point, the API will start to throw errors because the context becomes bigger and bigger, and there is a limit to how much context you can send to your API. So the next step is, what if I want to query documents? Okay, so we'll talk about what use cases might need that, and then how to what could be the mechanism with local documents, send the context to uh, GPI without having to send the entirety of, let's say, the local context could be. So what that I'm going to show you, how do we query an entire book? And that book could be, tens of thousands of words. And again, the limitation there is you cannot send the entirety of the context to the API. Limit to how many words, or in more technical words, how many tokens you can send across. So how to, overcome that limitation of API is something that we will end at. Then I want to follow up that discussion with a couple of things that how we can. So this will be more on a discussion thing. I don't want to load you up with too much code beyond that. So we'll discuss the challenges and the strategies around querying a DB or a CSV. Okay, querying a DB. We will talk about this to a product scale. What are the different ideas that we can use, build upon, whether it is maintaining cache, using a local LLM, and so on. So we'll discuss those ideas towards the end of the session. And then we have a questionnaire at the end. Uh, if you have been successfully taken away learning. Kushi, you in the Q&A that we'll have at the end? What have we planned for the participants?
Yeah, Q&A.
Yeah, so on the successful completion, do we get the pat on the back, or do we have something substantial planned?
Sorry,
Or do
can
we want
you come
to?
again?
Yeah, so we are on successful completion of Q&A. We will be sharing something with the participants.
Yes.
Do we have winners?
We'll select the winners post the masterclass, and they'll receive something
All
on
right,
their
and we have a
respective email.
surprise for the winners, huh? All right, so let's start with what all things we can achieve in terms of using large language. Why? So I'll summarize that why we want to talk about. So before large language models came in, before the excess became kind of public thing, there were other options. There were very popular frameworks like Rasa and the likes, which enabled you to build certain deep learning models at your end and embed that with certain ready frameworks for building applications. But therein, the challenge was that you have to be, to some extent, technically adept doing that. And the whole ecosystem wasn't as accessible as it is in today's world. Okay. So first, let's see what LLMs can do in general. So what else? They can do tons of things. They can write schemes. What I want to first focus on for everyone, how can we use large language models in our day-to-day use? Where, okay, my takeaway might not be that I necessarily want to build a chatbot, but I would want to use it in my day-to-day job. For example, many times it takes us, many times hours to think about how to properly structure an email, where to start on. Now, large language models can give you a head start. Of course, personalizing the content that it generates in the context of the abstract context of in which you want to use it, it's you. So you can personalize, but LLMs can give you a head start, which hours for you to work with. Can everybody see my browser window also? I'm asking you just to make sure that I'm not sharing just the whiteboard, I'm sharing my entire screen. Everybody can see the browser window here. Prakash, Muneem, Fatima, can you tell me? Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's first start with generating an email. Okay. Now, we can think of some difficult conversation. For example, let's say you have missed a deadline, or you are going to miss a deadline, and you need to let your supervisor know that you're going to miss a deadline. Okay, so let's start there. uh, Write, and it is as simple as that. Write an email to your supervisor to let her know that you are going to miss a deadline. And you can add more context. Uh, it was an infrastructure project, let's say. Infrastructure project. And the materials have been delayed due to shipping snags. Okay. You can address me as Lalit and my supervisor as, let's say, Anjali. Okay, let's see what. So you can see here, one of at least one of the biggest challenges for me when I'm writing an email is to come up with a subject line, and it is there. Okay, so some ChatGPT has done that for you already, and it tends to begin with generate something which is very verbose. Okay, so it generates this context. I hope this email finds you well. I'm writing to inform you and about an unforeseen delay in a current infrastructure project, which unfortunately impacts our scheduled timeline, and so on. So it's very verbose, and you can control it. You can ask it to stop generating, and it assumes few things, of course, that you are currently reassessing. Maybe your situation is that uh, you're not reassessing. It might lead to, as per your company policy, that this project goes to someone else, and so on. Okay, now, so of course you can add those details in order to make this more accurate to your context, but this is a very good start. Okay, let's modify this. So for example, we can say that do include that you mentioned in earlier discussion that take into we should have had taken into account this possibility, but the leadership ignored your suggestions while preparing the timelines. But you don't want the tone to be confrontational. Keep the tone neutral. And please keep the email short. Okay. So this does a beautiful job, and this email to me could have taken to put as much into words a long time, whereas ChatGPT is doing that for seconds. And as I mentioned, that it assumes certain things and writes on basis of that. You can always add more context. You can ask it to correct inaccuracies, and it conversationally builds that for you. And now you're free to go and use that. Now, it doesn't stop there. For example, this is one of the kind of content that we can write. It could be SMS, it could be email, and so on. You can actually paste previous emails that you have had, and then you can mention that, okay, how do I respond to this? This is what I want to say, but write it professionally, set a certain tone. I want to be aggressive about this, but I want to be neutral about this context of the discussion, and so on. Now, you can move beyond this. For example, many a times we have thoughts, we want to be online, we want to go out to the world, but not everybody is very adept at, say, putting their thoughts into, let's say, blogs. And this becomes a big hurdle. All of us at some point have thought about writing a blog about the things that we are passionate about the things that we know, about the things that we want to share. And again, when it comes to actually penning down those thoughts, we hit a snag. Okay. So here is an example. Let's say we were kind of, all of us watched the Cricket World Cup with a lot of passion, despite the end outcome. Many of us are a little sad about that. But let's say you saw how popular Cricket World Cup is, and you might not be a cricket fan per se. Okay. So let's say you want to, but you like the way cricket as a sport has been modeled in India. The framework which has finally brought in the level of competency, the level of money in the game, the level of awareness and the popularity which it enjoys. You want football to be as popular as cricket. So let's say you want to write about that. Okay, your idea is that football can follow the same model which cricket has, and that can inspire people to act on it, right? So let's ask ChatGPT to flesh out our ideas. Write a blog post about just a moment. Say, write a blog post about how India should, let's say, strategize to gain, uh, strategize for football as a sport to gain prominence in the country, on the same lines as it does in cricket. And let's see what our ChatGPT has to say. India's journey to football prominence, a strategic roadmap inspired by cricket's success. Okay, so it gives you suggestions that what all things we can do, and it identifies with its large corpus of knowledge base that it has been trained on. So it talks about grassroots development, nurturing future stars, the way we have cricket academies nationwide and school and college tournaments. Other responsible thing to do will be investing in infrastructure, the way we have so many stadiums and cricket academies across the country, and we have that, let's say, for football also. It seemed to stop there. Hello. It says that my internet connection is unstable. Am I audible to everyone? So let me do one thing. I'll rather turn off my video so that we have more bandwidth for the API to work on. Is that okay with everyone? Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's try this again. We can always say continue. Yeah. So it continues where it left, suggests having professional leagues and so on. So it'll go on and it will write a very detailed point-wise blog post. You can always, the way we did with email, we can ask it to make it more of paragraph style, maybe lesser bullet points, have different kind of bullet points under each of these and so on. We can even ask it to add more words to it. We can ask it to expand on any of these sections and so on, right? We can, so now with GPT-4, there is also an option for generating images, right? And we would want our blogs to look beautiful. So we can mention, okay, can you also generate images for each of these sections? And let's see what it comes up with. This might take a while. So while it is doing its job, it's generating the beautiful images. If you have any questions, you can please go ahead and ask. I might have given the network problem that I am facing possibly. So this is about the first section, that is grassroots development. And you can always ask it to generate modify images that, too much green there, too many kids on the ground. I want only see few footballs, not these many. So you can ask it to do all that modification. So gone are the days when to get these high quality images, you had to rely on Googling the images, and you had to kind of work around that. Okay, I don't want the watermarked images and so on. So this will do it for you. I'll ask it to stop generating. I just want to look at the next set of image, and then it'll stop. So maybe give it another few seconds. Yeah, so somebody is asking, we don't have GPT-4 versions, how do we do it? Is there any other alternative? You can, so there is no I would say non-paid free alternative per se, which is easier to set up. Okay. There can be other alternative in terms of, let's say, a free version of DALI or stable diffusion models that you can set up on your own machine or server, which is capable of doing that. But I think the cost to acquire such machine will not be going to justify a very simple use case per se. So other alternatives that you can use if you don't want to pay for GPT-4 is maybe explore other paid options like Mid-Journey, or maybe see if, although I haven't looked at offerings from Microsoft and Google, I think they're also have some image generating capabilities. If they don't have as of now, they will have in future, and it possibly might be free. Although GPT-4 is not that expensive if you need this feature very extensively. So if last time I checked, it does cost $23 for a month, which is around if you do the conversion around 1800 rupees. And if it's generating images, a big part of your job, that might be a worthwhile investment to do. We'll have to wait in the waiting list for GPT-4. Not really. They've rolled out for all the subscriptions. Yeah. So I did not really have to get in a queue to get this. Are we going to learn how to get our OpenAI API key? I can show you. It's really a few click step. Yeah, I can show you that. It seems that this somehow is. Let me try continue. I'm actually taking the session from hotel, so I don't have a very great network per se of high-speed network. So we'll try this, and if this doesn't happen, you get the idea. You just have to ask it to create images, and it does that for you. And we can stop one more image, and we can move on to, okay. So it does. This is about the second set is investment and infrastructure. It gives you breathtaking images and all new ones. So I'll stop here. And as I said earlier, we'll see some examples of how we can ask GPT to, modify these things. Shikar, you're asking, can we use GPT 3.5, which is free for what we're doing today? For not for creating images, no. So if I switch to say GPT 3.5, which is by default freely available, and ask it to, can you create an image for me depicting, let's say, an elephant in the wild? And I think it might say, yeah. So GPT 3.5 is not capable of creating images. GPT 4 is. And it uses DALI or modified version of that. Yeah. Currently, there is waiting list for GPT-4. Okay, I might have been lucky. But I think that that situation, even if there is a queue, might change pretty soon. Okay, going to, so about email and blog is one thing. Can we, so let's say you are a professional coming from marketing group, and can we use it to create an ad copy or a script or something like that? You definitely can. You can think of whatever text that we used to write, be it book chapters or blog or emails. You can use the text generation here. Here it is. Let's say we want to create a short ad for a new LLM, large language model, focusing on Indic languages. Include what it can do, which an English focused, which is GPT-4 naturally, English focused LLM cannot do. Okay. Again, it is creating an image somehow. So let's create a new chat, because it is working on the conversation that we have been having so far. Okay, we'll go to a new chat, create, so that the earlier context is not taken into account. Create short ad copy text for a new LLM focusing on this. Okay. And it gives, it goes ahead and do more than what you asked for it. You can, of course, ask it to modify these ideas. Okay. So it does create, what might go into an Indic language. Okay. You can ask it to, okay, make it, say, 140 word tweet. Although tweets now don't have text limits, but let's say, it could be some other purpose. Okay. Let's say you want to, this has a lot of details in it, right? We can ask is make it more catchy with, say, with a unique example and an image. It's okay to ignore some technical details. So it has chosen to create the image first. That is where my network gives me pains. So I also wanted to include an example where, I mean, we'll see that, okay, meet Sanskriti and witness as it juggles in the Tamil, Bengali, and more with ease and flair. Imagine chatting in Marathi and Telugu, no sweat, Sanskriti AI, breaking language barriers, one translation at a time. And it says the accompanying illustrates this innovative concept beautifully. Okay. And this is where what GPT-4 is doing, it takes away this stuff for which you might go to a copywriter, you might go to, of course, a graphic designer to create such kind of, breathtaking images. GPT-4, a large language model, is able to do that. Now, is it that perfect? Always working with images is that easy? It's not, and many a times it's still is a work in progress. You get to see, for example, let's say I ask it to uh, create a minimalist bar chart for following data. Say we talk about a particular university, so a number of students, 14,000 plus. So we want to showcase the human capital the university might have. And number of students, 40,000 plus, faculty members, I don't know, give some number, 800 plus, and research fellows, 1100 plus. We give some numbers and we want to showcase bar chart graphic. Okay. So let's wait for this. And you might see again, since it's always a random image generation, it might do a perfect job. I haven't actually seen this example before, but the challenges that I see when we are creating data charts with GPT-4 that I've seen is when it comes to labeling within the image, it struggles a ton. Okay. We might see if at all it generates that with an issue. Okay, so you can see that it has kind of taken up on itself to say there is 14,400 plus students, 14,000 members, 1,000 plus research fellows, 800 plus some random text it has added. So there is, a challenge. It's not perfect, especially when it comes to text within the images. You can work with these graphics, but avoid where the text might appear. So that is one thing. You can ask it to change the background and so on. I will not go into more detail there. So the idea about talking and showing you this, what all things we can generate: email, blog, ad copy, tweet, and so on. So this gives you the capability of you can see the sophistication in the response of GPT like model. We can we so the next step would be, okay, can I build this power into my own bot? Okay. And that is what we are going to see. So let me give you a quick run through as to what an API is, just in case people aren't aware of what API is. So right now, when I am chatting with, so let's say this is the GPT user interface. Okay. This is the GPT user interface, the website that we are using. The moment I write a message or a question or a chat or an instruction, this message passes through this UI. It goes to OpenAI servers. And OpenAI servers in turn, they first of all keep on saving these questions. They take this into account, the new message into account, and combining these, they send back a response. And this response in turn is displayed to you on the same user interface. Now, when you build your own applications, the one basic challenge there is that you want to have your own interface. It could be an app, it could be a web page, it could be response over whatever interface that you have in mind. Now, the APIs are nothing but which cuts this middleman. Okay. An API server would be where an API server would be identical to OpenAI server, where you as a user, without any interface per se, directly send this message or query to this API server, which is in our case running a large language model. And then it directly sends this its response back to the user, and then you are free to display it in whatever interface you want. Okay. And of course, in order to, for example, when you're browsing, when you're using a browser, the authentication is already inbuilt. You log in as a user, or maybe even as a guest. So there are certain authentication which the browser take care of at the back end and gives you the response. When you are accessing directly the API server, user authentication comes into play. So somebody mentioned that can we see how to generate OpenAI API key? So one is, of course, you will need to subscribe to a plan. And okay, I can. So it will ask you to subscribe to a plan. It's a process that you go through. It's very to follow. Once you've subscribed to it, essentially giving them some card information, billing information. It's not very costly though. And then once you have that, you will have an API keys window where creating a new API is as simple as saying create new secret key, and you can say, gives you an option, my test example key, and you create the secret key. And it shows you once. You will need to copy this, and that's it. So that becomes your key, which you can then start using it, using in your use cases. All right, Shikar, is that what you were asking for? Mm-hmm. So it's yeah, so it's as simple as that. The interface is very straightforward. And the moment, if I, let's say I've copied it once here, and likewise you can create. So let's say you take an account and you have the admin access to it. You can create these keys for other users within your team, and you can pass them the key. They don't have to have the account access per se, and you can differentiate. You can look at the different API, different users usage and billing and so on. It's very straightforward. Now, how does this key work? So as I said, I'll be using simple Jupyter notebook for this. So no very, I would say, technically loaded discussion. Just give me a moment. Okay, so I have this notebook, and I've already created a simple uh, space to start with. The couple of packages that we will need to import. And here, those users who have not used Python, you're not aware of Python as a tool, focus on the ideas, and we will be sharing this simple notebook with you, sans the key, of course. I will be disabling the key post the session. So if you subscribe to OpenAPI, if you look at the cost, so I think I can motivate you to subscribe if you are into experimenting. They should have in the cost section somewhere. Usage settings. pricing. Okay. So here the cost is very, very reasonable. And I'll tell you. So here is GPT-4 116 preview. There are other cheaper models, GPT 3.5 Turbo and Struct and so on. The cost is 0.0010. So essentially 0.1 cent per 1,000 tokens. Now, tokens is that whenever you are communicating with the, okay, let me mention this. So roughly, 60-word query, and this changes, of course, okay, depends on the complexity of things. A very rough estimate translates to 100 odd tokens, okay, and the cost is 0.1 cent per 1,000 tokens. Okay. So if we go by this, let's say each question that we are asking is around, and there is a cost to the responses that it sends. So cost of output is 0.00, so 0.2 cent. So this is input cost, and the response, the input that it receives, it charges you for that, and 0.2 cent per 1,000 tokens for the output. So let's assume that a 60 word question eventually generates you can always extrapolate this question to other users, 60-word answer. Okay. So then in order to reach to just $1 cost, we are looking at around asking 17 odd questions. And if we consider that the response is clearly, so in order to reach 1 cent, that is 1 cent, we are looking at such question answer pairs around, let's say, 8 question answer pairs. And we, if we now go to $1, that will require us to do 800 question answers. So this is fairly cheap. It's not something which is very costly or should deter you from using it. Okay. It's fairly cheap. GPT 3.5, if you go to GPT 4, it's more expensive. Of course, it's almost, I think, more than 10 times expensive, but more than 10 times brings the 800 question answer pair to 80, which still is a fairly cheap competition with the kind of details and capability that it provides. Okay, now coming to actually using this API, if you've convinced yourself that yeah, it does, it's worth the money. I'm not advertising for GPT-4. I have no association with them for this. Just to help you rationalize the operational cost, just in case you want to get into this development. So we'll set the OpenAI key. We will talk about some alternative to this. Okay. So don't worry, I'm not pushing this on you per se. Okay. Now here, we will first learn to ask questions directly without an interface. This is a programming interface. In a more real world use case, this would be where we will be creating a Python script, a Flask app, and so on. But the crux of the development will be these few lines. So everything else that we add will be to flesh it out, converting it to a server thing. And if you want to add more an interface to it, more code will go into it. But the core remains these few lines that we will see here in today's session. So first we'll build a message, which we will pass. In here, we will define that this is coming from a user. So that is what this role means. This is coming from a user. How it can be used to set the tone is something that we'll see in the next example. So let's say we write content. let's say we ask, write a short tweet about a product which helps save water. Okay, this is our query. This is the content that we want to pass on to the API server, and then we expect a response back. Okay, so this works as a completion, chat completion, that we give some inputs and server response back with its response. You know, it's the result that the completion that it ends up doing. So we'll use the OpenAI key we have already set. We'll write OpenAI chat completion dot create, and here we'll define which model we want to use, and this will drive the cost. Okay, so GPT-4, the keyword for this we see here, GPT 3.5 Turbo, something that we'll be using. And if you go with GPT-4, it becomes a little costly, but that's all right. For most text purposes, in my experience, uh, just GPT-5 Turbo suffice. Okay, so we'll specify the model here. And then, of course, we want to pass on the messages which we want to expect, which we expect the response for. So messages equal to the list that we created earlier here. And there is a bit of latency, and we'll talk about how this can become an issue. For very simple prototype use cases, that's not a problem. Now, completion as a dictionary is a JSON dump and looks kind of difficult to read through. You know, there is a lot of information. If you want to keep track of cost, it tells you completion tokens, prompt tokens, total tokens. So you can keep on tracking if you want how much each of these conversations are costing. That is if you're interested. And then there are other details, which exactly which turbo model was used. So it gives you this version also. You can specify further things there also. So let's say for users, if we are developing an app, I don't want to show my user all of this. You know, I'm only interested in this guy. So you can here completion as an object has element. You can access those elements as with the keyword. So choices is the keyword. Within that, if you want to go further into messages, if you wanted to go into usage, you could go here, but we are interested in messages. So I'll write message. And then within that, I want to go to content. Role assistant means this is a response coming from GPT. If it was a question from user, the role would have been user. Okay, so message, and further I'm interested in content. So this is my response that I would be displaying. I can fetch it from this generic response here, and says that introducing the revolutionary water saving gadget, cut your water usage in half without compromising your shower experience, contribute to a greener future while saving big on bills, time to make a sustainable splash, hashtag water saver, go green sustainability, and so on. You could further modify this, but then it comes to the problem that well, the way GPT user face was working, it contains the history of conversations that we have. But the moment we switch to an API, it's a call, and then the history is gone. The questions that you're asking the server, it is not keeping track of it. So that's a challenge, and we'll see how to address that. But for now, this is the bare bones simple example how to create a simple query bot with where you enable users to ask questions on your own interface. At the backend, you're calling GPT API. Okay. Can we, let's say we are not worried about the conversational thing. This is a simple query bot, simple Q&A bot. We'll look at how to make it conversational, how to make, how to keep track of history and pass it to the GPT API. For now, let's say the next thing that I want to do is to set the tone, and that is one, I would say, usage of, or rather opportunity, which prompts that, okay, gives you a better experience in terms of using API, where you can hide from the user why exactly your bot responds in a certain way. For example, here, let's say I set the tone. So I will define this role, and here I will define the role of assistant. So I want to associate some behavior with my bot. And here I am saying that, you know what, say respond in complex English language with big words, make your response a rhyme, a 4-line rhyming poem, a 4-line rhyming poem. So when we set this tone, user which is coming to our app has no clue as to what kind of tone we are setting. And that can make for some very interesting use cases. Okay, so here to this tone, now I want to append to this our use cases. Let's say now the user comes into the picture with whatever interface we are taking this input. We are not worried about that. This is not the core of the discussion in this session. So wherever you're taking the inputs from, it could be a web interface, it could be an app interface, it could be as simple as a Google form thing, if that is capable of triggering an API call. So let's say the user asks, why should one aspire to, I don't know, go green and practice being environment friendly? Okay, this is the user question. So now when I go back and make the same API call, this goes with this entirety of this content. It is not just the user query. It goes with the first piece also, that is the role of assistant, and therein we are setting the tone. That is point in English language, make it a poem, use big words, and this could be anything. You could talk, you can make it talk in in tone of a 5-year-old, use very simple words, layman's language, write a haiku, create very concise paragraph, short responses. You can set whatever tone you want. Okay, you can even ask it to write like a certain author if you want. Okay, so let's we'll use the simple same bit. We'll ask the OpenAI API, we'll send these messages, and okay, so let's say this is our response, and if what did I do? Role should be what all things it supports: system, assistant, user, function. Okay, assistant would be the response that I would receive. My bad, we'll call it system. Okay, my bad. Okay, so now we have this response, and what we are interested in is not this raw thing. We are interested in the text that it has sent. So I will go to choices, the first thing there, and then message, and then content. So to aspire towards verdant deeds with eco-consciousness and mindful creeds, For Mother Earth, a gracious pledge. Let us embrace her preservation dredge. And, such an interesting thing. If I were to come up with a poem like that, I don't think it'll take time. I don't think I'll be able to do it. And again, it takes seconds for your bot to do that. Now, the challenge here is that this takes a ton in terms of, you know, this doesn't contain, or rather, this takes some effort if we want to maintain the local history for this. Okay. Just give a moment. Give me a moment. I want to switch to a pre-defined code for this. I don't want to keep on writing the code. I think the session might go beyond the time that we have allotted for this. So just give me a moment. I'll switch to a pre-defined code here. Just 2 minutes. I did want to code live, but I think the time here doesn't permit us to do that. That's all right. No worries. Okay. So it contains these examples. Okay. So here we are. Let me share my screen again and let me know if you see that. Okay, everybody sees my screen? Yes, I'll be sharing the notebook. Kushi, we will be able to share the notebooks with all the participants. Can we mail it to them or share a link for them to download it?
We can share a link for them to download.
All right. So yeah, Shikar, I think that answers your question. Okay, cool. All right. So first is we will need to create some kind of local database first. I have taken an example of simple SQL database. This can be something more complex, more mature also. But as an example, as a skeleton thought process, this will do. What we are going to do is we are going to create a simple test database with a table where we maintain a user query DB, where what we need is user ID. And if we want to separate this into session, we can, add more details to it. We can maintain a user ID and a session ID, depends on the interface that we are working with. For us, for now, as an example, if we want to keep things simple, we'll stick with having just the user ID. The role, because we want to make sure that the system role which sets the tone, the response which come with the user tag assistant, and the user queries. We want to maintain that history for multiple reasons. One is we want to build a conversational bot. Another thing is that we might want to make use of the data. For example, although the API access is cheaper and it seems like worth the money from building a product use case, but at some point we, as we scale, our responses might be repetitive, and we might want to make use of what we have already accessed GPT for. So for a lot of things, maintaining the conversation history can be beneficial, okay, and essential in some cases. We'll create a test. This will create a test DB. And let's say we want to have a base tone. So we'll start with a base tone here. Let's say I want to build a chatbot which responds to ML and AI queries and responds in a layman's language, keeps it simple. So we'll set the tone here. And I've written a quick function where every time a user interact, we create some user history and dump this into the DB. So it takes up the role and the content from history inputs, and it is dumping this into SQL DB, commits that to the DB. Let's say I'm showing you for just one user ID, but the same thought process can be scaled to more number of users and API calls as well. Okay. So to start with, we'll first save this for every user. This will be a common thing. If you are little database schema savvy, we could probably, because we are repeating this for every user, we could make another DB, another table for this within the table, and then avoid repeating this. But for our example case, this is fine. Now I want to add this, right? Whatever we are doing, I want to add this user and content query. What is random forest? So the base history remains the same, but user history now has that role which sets the tone and the user question. Okay, we will save that in the history now. So whatever that table is contains these two rows along with the user ID. And here, when I send this along here, we are maintaining some kind of conversation, right? So the user is asking what is random forest, and this is the answer. Random forest is a machine learning algorithm. In simple words, layman's terms, it explains this. It is an ensemble method. Forests are known for handle large data sets, handling missing values, reduce the chances of overfitting, and so on. And we could have set the tone to be more technical, more verbose, and accordingly the response will change. Then we would want to save this, whatever response that we receive. So here the role is assistant and the content is the answer. Now user history has 3 rows. It is growing. We can dump it in the DB again. Now we can, so say the user comes again, we can extract that history from our database. And here the user ID is 1, it could be something else. We are now not making use of the earlier user history that we manually created. Okay. Here we can see that history like this. Okay, so we can retrieve the history from the DB. And here onwards, if I want to build on top of this conversation, let's say now add another user question, which is a continuation of this conversation. Can you summarize that for me in 2 lines? Okay, so standalone, this question doesn't make sense. Summarize what, right? So here we need the history, which we are maintaining in our local DB. And it does that. So it is aware of that. It's not stumbling. It says that tries to summarize the whole thing in 2 lines if at all that is possible. Random forest is a machine learning algorithm that combines multiple decision trees to make prediction. It is versatile, handles large data sets well, and reduces overfitting. Okay. So, and of course, there are some challenges that you need to be aware of here. One is that if you keep on doing this, if you now add this response to the history, that questions the history, it will keep on growing. And at one point, you will start to get an error that there is a limit to how many tokens you can pass. I think in the earlier version, it was 4,000. It might have increased, but there will be an upper limit to how much context you can send. So a couple of strategies you can use here. One is, so you are free to modify the history context that you send. And how can you modify that? Say 2 things. One is always keep the tone setting system role message, the first one. And then maybe, so this is just a suggestion, the different subjective calls might work better in different contexts. So always keep the tone setting system message, and let's say, say keep last 6 messages from the entire history. This is a very, very simple way of managing. You can make it more custom. You can set that keep only the assistant responses or user queries, ignore certain length user queries and short responses. You can customize this. But because you are the one who is building this API and you control what kind of history you want to share, you have control over this. It's not that, okay, a user can have a conversation for a few times and then your system starts to fail. No, you have control over it, because all that OpenAI at this point is playing the role as to responding to your one-off messages, and rest is in your hands. Now, the last thing that I wanted to talk about is many a times we want to do our own bit, in the sense that, fine, OpenAI has a very large, just OpenAI has a very large knowledge base on top of which it works. But it's many times it's required that we want to build a use case where we want to have the ability to query our own data set. So it could be, let's say, we want to ask a question from a book, or we want to ask a question from a detailed corporate agreement. Corporate agreements and documents can go into hundreds of pages. And if your stakeholder asks that, okay, what is the provision for a certain process, certain scenario, you don't have to read, say, through 500 pages of documentation. You can use LLM for that. And you can, in fact, create an app which your stakeholders can use to directly query the document itself. The problem there is, to begin with, such large documents are going to have larger in context. A 500 book easily could be a 25,000 words, and those 25,000 words might translate into 40,000 tokens. You cannot send that across at once to OpenAI API. So what do you do? If you send a subset of that, that doesn't serve a purpose. There should be a mechanism to send a subset of that. Okay, so here is a workaround that we'll be using a package called LangChain there. It does a lot of legwork for you at the backend, and all that you need to do is use few lines of code. I'll explain the mechanism, and all these are pre-built functions. Here is my data for the example. So what I've done is I have a strategic management book in text format. This very well could have been a PDF. So there are PDF loaders also, just the function name would change. Now, this has 12 chapters, and each chapter is a couple of thousands of words. So first chapter is, let's say, about introduction to strategic management. This is strategic management books. The fourth chapter is about analysis of external environment. It shows what the learning are. The final chapter is about reallocation of resources, and then what the objectives there. Okay. So here, what we would ideally want is, since I'm querying my local database, the couple of challenges or the requirements that we want to fulfill, here is one. How to avoid token exceeding error. There is no, I would say, uh, golden bullet here. We have to subset. How to subset properly, as in, instead of randomly sending a subset, how to subset properly, and then send that as a context to OpenAI API to generate a sophisticated user-friendly language response, which looks like human generated response. Okay. Now, and then the next bit we can add is how to add reference. For example, let's say the example that I gave, that we want to say query a corporate agreement. So when this generates a response, we would ideally want to refer to and go and read that particular section. I don't want to read the 500-page book on it, but if I get a response, I would actually want to go and read that particular section in detail, right? Just to confirm things, right? So how to add reference. And if we were to build all this from scratch, well, we could if we wanted to, but LangChain already has these inbuilt functionalities which we can make use of. So first thing, solving the first thing, how to avoid the token, first two questions rather, how to avoid token exceeding error and how to subset properly. So what LangChain does, it first loads all the documents that you have. This is being done locally. Then it breaks it into sizable chunks, let's say 2000 tokens each. Okay. Then it creates embeddings. So embeddings are nothing but which is converting these text documents to some vector representation, which is much easier and smaller to store, to put it very simply. And it is stores in some vector database. The name isn't really relevant. It's basically now the documents have been broken into and into some vector DB, easily accessible. The latency is very small to search. Now, what this retriever is doing, whenever user sends a query, instead of sending the entirety of the context, what this does, it first matches. So it creates the query into embedding and it matches that embedding with these different chunks. And we have said that select up to 4 matches. Okay, so it selects up to 4 matches. That number could go down, high, it's up to us. We can control the size of these chunks also. Now, it selects the best matches locally and then sends that subset as context. So this is using some machine intelligence to select the portion of the books, to subset properly from the local chunks with our query. For example, now I am asking this question: what is strategic management? And this QA is already using the OpenAI LLM, and it is using this retriever that we have defined, which uses the local embeddings. We can save it and pass it on to our server and can run there. The embedding creation can be a long process, might take 5-10 minutes, but it's a one-time thing. You can save these embeddings later on until you decide to add something to document. Then you might want to create the embeddings again. So here, let's say I'm asking what is strategic management? What are the organizational challenges for implementation? It takes a while. You can make it shorter by creating smaller chunks and decreasing the number of chunks that you allow for it to send. The result is this answer: strategic management is a process of planning, organizing, leading, and controlling, and so on. You can read the response. Along with that, it also returns source documents locally. So it refers to these chunks for the building up this, very comprehensive, well-defined text. Now, here, we can always, of course, we read through this. We are only are interested in reference, so we can go through it and just print the resources. It happens to be for this, the particular references, just the unit one. We can ask some more questions when I share this notebook and data with you. You can experiment with adding your own PDFs and text and ask more questions, and it'll give you multiple references for the answers that it generates. All right. Sorry, Shikar, I think missed your question on time. You were asking, we are going to be customizing it using role system. Can you tell me in what context was this? I'm so sorry, I missed your question at that time. Yeah, I'll wait for you to, I don't know, type up your question maybe, if you're there. Okay, so we'll wait for Shika to come back. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to cover, and I think I've already taken more time than we had allotted. The last thing that I want to talk about, and I think this session will not be complete without that discussion, is what kind of tricks and challenges you might face. I'll be wrapping up pretty soon. Last leg of discussion. One couple of challenges that you can face is one is the eventual conversations become very repetitive. So what you can do is consider maintaining a cache or the history that we saw. Consider maintaining a cache. A cache within system which you can retrieve and reuse. You can consider using local large language models. For example, Llama is one which is free, open source, but you will need powerful machines to load these models. They will be better on latency. For example, it might take a couple seconds, but if you want to increase the response efficiency, consider using local LLMs. If you want, let's say you see that the response is not very good because your context is very niche. So you should explore something known as fine-tuning LLMs. GPT-4 now has a fine-tuning facility. If you notice here, you might want to explore that. So where was this? So there is entire system mentioned for fine-tuning. Shigar, you mentioned about modifying, customizing, like keep the last 6 chats in history. Would be doing this using the role system. No, Shikhar. What I meant was as this history is growing, so if I go back to that example, you could simply say, so here we'll be using more question and answer. And let's say the overtime conversation goes into fine, I know about random forest. Can you tell me about GBM? What is PCA? And so on. And maybe at the end of 10th question, the earlier 3 interactions did not matter. Okay, so from that perspective, you don't have to modify the role per se. You could simply say that instead of passing on the entire history list, you could do something like this. Say history, pass on, I don't know, starting from say -6 till the end. Okay, something like that. Okay. Okay. Now, okay. The other challenges with LLMs you can have is uh, it might not be factual. So many times hallucinations, although the newer version of LLMs are doing better, you might have to some fact checking in place. You might also want to ask, do you really need an LLM? So you don't have to solve every problem with LLM. Consider that other simpler data-centric approaches can do the job. All right. So that's all from my end. Kushi, should I go and share the questionnaire with the participants now?
Sure, sure.
All right. Let me do that. There are instructions in place, but still, Kushi, if you want walk us through this, do let me know. So I'll start this. I'll wait for your prompt to go to the next one. So just I'll quickly read these out. We have very few questions for you to answer. You'll answer them on the chat or the Q&A window which you have available. I think, Kushi, you will be able to access. You will get 30 to 40 seconds to submit questions. And then Uh, you are allowed to answer just one. Okay. Correct answers I will show you once the time window is open, and at the end we'll choose some winners, and you'll be receiving some surprise gift. Here is the first question. What distinguishes a conversational chatbot from a simple QA chatbot? Your options are A, the ability to perform mathematical calculations, B, the capacity to engage in dynamic, context-aware conversations, C, the speed of response, D, the use of a graphical user interface. So whatever you think is the most apt response to it, please go ahead and answer that. You just have to write the letter A, B, C, or D. Kushi, I'll wait for your prompt when I should go and show the answers.
You can move to the next slide. You can show the answers.
Okay, so the answer is the capacity to engage in dynamic context-aware conversations. The context-aware is what makes it conversational. If we are using single API calls, it's not context-aware. There is no history to it, right? So that's the major difference. Now, second question is, when querying a large local PDF knowledge base, the discussion that we had towards the end, what is the primary challenge for a chatbot? Changing the PDF's font size, efficiently extracting relevant information in real time, displaying PDF graphics, the color of the PDF text. You have 30 seconds to respond. Kushi, I will again, I'm repeating myself. I'll wait for your prompt. Okay.
We can move to the next question.
All right. Here's the response: efficiently extracting relevant information in real time. So the challenge is the large context that we need to send, and we saw how LangChain kind of takes care of that and does the majority of the legwork for us. Okay. How does integrating an API like OpenAI affect the chatbot's capability in handling complex queries? It enhances the visual interface. You'll have to see whether API does that. It provides advanced text generation and understanding. It increases the chatbot's speed. It changes the chatbot's color scheme. Again, your response.
We can show the answer.
All right. Here you are. So when it's API, the visual interface is something which API doesn't have a control over. It's something that you have control over. The API's job is to do the backend work, to provide the text generation for you. The next question is, in the context of a chatbot, why is querying a large PDF knowledge base base is more complex than querying structured data, say a CSV file. So the first option there is due to the unstructured nature of the PDF content. PDFs require more graphical processing. PDFs are usually in different languages. The color schemes of PDFs vary greatly. So many of them could look like the challenges, but what is the most, I would say, common challenge in context of PDFs? You'll have to choose, you'll have to do some reasoning there and choose the best. Again, there's only one answer, most, I would say, making sense answer here, which will be true in every kind of PDF.
We can choose them.
Okay. So the most thing which will be true for all the PDFs is the unstructured nature of PDFs. Graphical processing might not be an issue for a PDF which only contain text for that matter. Whereas every PDF is going to be unstructured. It is going to be very different from a tabular data where there are only defined field, fixed number of information. You can actually build a system which doesn't really need an LLM for that. Yeah, but when you're working with PDFs, the real challenge is the uncertainty in terms of the unstructured data. What kind of information is going to be where in the PDF is not really clear. The next question, the second last one, why is continuous learning and updating important for a conversational chatbot? So this is, building, coming up with your own common sense response to what we have been discussing. That as the chatbot is built over time, you might want to, analyze what kind of conversations we are doing, and you might want to think about why should I really be updating it. So here, keep changing its appearance to adapt to evolving user interactions and preferences, to change the chatbot's name frequently, to regularly update the chatbot's logo. So again, you'll have to change one thing which is most appropriate. You have to choose one response which is most appropriate in the context. It's more of a common sense thing for you to kind of assess here.
You can show the answers.
So to adapt to evolving user interactions, right? So as you know, as you have these conversations, not only evolving user interactions and preferences, you might also learn from them. Users might respond with that, what, can you give me an answer again, simplify it, summarize it, and you might learn over time that what, my users prefer the short answers. Their preferences are the short answers. They keep on asking me to summarize things, so why not start giving shorter answers to begin with, and then if one of the users asks to elaborate, fine, let's do that, but from to begin with, let's generate shorter answers, right? So that is where updation or learning from the usage of the tools comes in the picture. And the last question is, what challenge does a chatbot face when interfacing with users speaking different languages? Okay, the responses are choosing the right background music, incorporating effective multilingual support, deciding on the chatbot's personality, the color of the chat interface. This is where I think a lot of the language models out there are working towards, right? And English is kind of sorted by now. But other languages where the populace is small is something where a lot of work is going on. We had 6 questions only, Kushi, right? I think this is the last one. Let me
Yes.
know when we can move to the answer. Here we are. And that's about it. Thank you. Kushi, you want to add to conclude this session?
So, everyone who has participated in this session and especially in the Q&A round, please stay tuned at your respective email ID from where you have registered. You will receive a notification from us and it will be something great and we hope you really like it. And thank you so much, Lalit, for the session. It was
Thank
an
you.
amazing session.
I hope there was a worthwhile takeaway for users. I'll be sharing the notebook and data with you, Kushi, as soon as I reach back tomorrow. So users might receive it either by tomorrow or day after tomorrow, the link and the data for them to download. And if at all you have any issue in, working with that, you need some help, you can write to Kushi directly, or you can drop me a message here. Kushi, you can share the way users can reach back to us. Yeah.
Sure, I'll do that.
Yeah. I think somebody is asking, will we be sharing the recording for the session with the people?
Yes, we'll be sharing the recording for this session and it will be uploaded on our YouTube channel as well.
Shikar is saying, thank you for the session. Appreciate you guys doing it for free. Well, it's pleasure is all mine. We wanted to, create that spark and people who are curious, to make them see what all the possibilities are. And I think it's just I touched the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot to explore, and if you need my help, feel free to reach out. Okay. Prakash, I think you will see these details in the emails that we'll share with you. Yeah. All right. So shall we conclude this here, Kushi?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for joining. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.